How would I say good morning? If you are greeting a people, you are greeting an audience, it's different from the family greeting that I indicated earlier. Well, above where Nigeria, that's to say good morning, Nigeria.
Even in Benin, I used to say domo in the morning.
Domo is a respectful greeting to an elder.
Okay.
That's right. So, of course, you have younger persons who are watching this program. You also have my age mates. You also have persons who are much older. So, let's take a look. So, what Mother Tongue Day, of course, we missed it yesterday.
We must speak our mother tongue.
Absolutely.
And language experts say children who are proficient in their mother tongue are better intelligent and proficient in other languages.
Other languages. Very well. So, I hope you don't miss that on the home front.
Wouldn't dare. All right, let's start off with this first paper, the blueprints leading for... Okay, well, it's one of the lead stories. Just below the nameplates, we have the confusion over missing Yobe school girls. Two writers to that story. Federal government unsure of actual number. And the second writer says, Yobe government regrets wrong information. Story starts right there, but continues on page 6. And still on the missing schoolgirls is the lead story for the Punch newspaper. Dapchi residents stone Yobe governor's convoy. 3 riders, 7 vehicles damaged, officials injured. We don't know the number of missing girls yet, says federal government. Don't treat Dapchi pupils like Chibok girls. Senate wants federal government. More details on page 7. And you have the photograph of about 2 of the vehicles that were damaged. The 2 of the vehicles in the convoy of Governor Ibrahim Gedam of Yobe State. Kingsley?
Yeah, the story on the Yobe abduction is also there on the front pages of the 3 papers I have. Above the name flag of the Daily Independent, you have a kicker, Yobe attack. Avoid Chibok experience, Senate tells federal government. With a rider, we are not sure of true situation of missing girls. That's attributed to Lai Mohammed, Minister of Information. Now, for the New Telegraph, it's also is the second lead story right at the foot of the front page of the paper, and it says missing schoolgirls. Parents weep as angry youths attack governor's convoy. With 3 riders, governor denies army's rescue. EU condemns abduction. Gedam, that's the governor of the state. We are still searching for missing girls. That story is on page 2 in greater detail. And also for the Leadership newspaper, the story is there on the front page, just immediately below the nameplate, one of the 2 headlines. Controversy trails rescue of Dapchi schoolgirls. That's on page 7 in greater detail. Bayo, let's take that story first.
Yes, the worrying situation is that we're in a situation of stampede. You never can account for everybody until days after. Like the Commissioner of Police of Yobe indicated, about 826 students have been accounted for. Students in the range of 46 to about 51 have not been accounted for. And the Yobe State government yesterday apologized for the earlier information that some girls had been rescued. They said no such girls have been rescued. In fact, the information they say they have is that from the people who saw the convoy of Boko Haram going, they said they saw only the convoy of Boko Haram. They didn't see any girls with them. Meanwhile, the 3-man delegation of the Federal Executive Council, led by the Honorable Minister of Information, Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Minister of Defense, say that what is known for a fact is that some students cannot be accounted for. Meanwhile, some students have returned, others have called from their hiding locations. Their teachers ushered them into the bush when the insurgents were coming. So it's not the kind of, it's difficult, but after a while, I'm sure many of them will be treated. But meanwhile, the Senate, like Kingsley read, Senate had warned against a repeat of what happened at Chibok. You will recall that in 49 days, that by some coincidence, it will be exactly 4 years that the abduction at Chibok happened. And so the Senate is cautioning that everything should be done to make sure that we don't have a repeat of the Chibok.
Listen, I think perhaps one of the greater lessons to learn from all of this, apart from managing our security much more closely and carefully, relates to public information management.
Yes.
With this same scenario that is playing out now, we saw it happen during the Chibok schoolgirls abduction. There was an initial report, if I attributed to the then defense spokesperson, that the military had rescued the Chibok schoolgirls. And the defense, director of defense information at the time was relying on information that was given to him, that the military had rescued the schoolgirls. It turned out not to be so, of course. In this particular case, the state government, that is the spokesperson for the state government, had also issued a statement that the military had rescued some of the schoolgirls on the basis of the information that, that the government official had. And it turned out to be false. So in a crisis situation, yes, people are hungry for information, but I think getting out the right information is also very important.
It's very important.
Because one aspect of history is that history is stubborn. If you don't learn from the mistakes of history, you repeat the same thing. That's what we're happening.
That's right. All right, Bayo, let's take, there's another story that is trending on the front pages of all the papers. I think is the lead for the Daily Independent, and also I believe the lead for the other papers that Blessing has. Daily Independent, the lead story says APC crisis worsens as Tinubu asks Oyegun and the National Working Committee to resign. Two riders favors setting up caretaker committee, accuses Oyegun of sabotaging his reconciliation efforts. That story is in greater detail on page A4. Now, the story is also there on the front page of the New Telegraph, immediately below the nameplate, one of the four headlines in the window there. It says, Tinubu to Buhari, Oyegun frustrating APC's reconciliation efforts. That story comes in greater detail on page 4. So then you also have it for the Leadership newspaper, just beside the main photograph there. You are undermining APC's reconciliation, Tinubu tells Oyegun. That story jumps to page 7.
For the Blueprint, it's captioned this way: EFCC storms APC Secretariat. With two writers to that story, Tinubu accuses Oyegun of sabotage, and also party sets up 3-man committee on Kaduna crisis. More details on page 39. Still on the front page of the Blueprint, you have the photograph of the president and an handshaker with Ekiti State's governor during the National Council of State meeting at State House in Abuja yesterday. Okay, still on the APC story is just above the nameplate for the Punch newspaper. You are undermining peace efforts, Tinubu tells Oyegun. More details about that on page 10. Okay, at the foot of the page, there are other stories. Petrol queues may not disappear soon, says Kachuku. More details on page 25. And Imo government probes death of people frog-marched by soldiers. Pages 4 and 5 will give you more details. HMOs fault NHIS bus reinstatements, and Sue Buhari and AGF.
Yeah, all right, Bayo, let's take this because we have other stories.
You see the photograph that Blessing was referring to. Initially, I thought it was a red cap chief that was in Nishiago. I had to look closely before I recognized Governor Yobe.
That's a blueprint. Yes, that's a blueprint.
National Council of State meeting. But meanwhile, the issue about the election reordering in the Senate is still generating controversy. Yesterday, the Northern Senators Forum said they had expelled Senator Adamu Abdullahi. Another senator raised objection on the floor of the House, saying that he is a member of the committee. There was no meeting that was held by either the secretary or PRO for which such a decision was taken. But meanwhile, the former chairman of National Independent Electoral Commission, Professor Tairu Jega, has also offered an opinion on what is going on, particularly about sequencing of the elections. He says that, to his mind, there is need to go to court for interpretation as to as this has to do with the independence of the electoral body. He says, I am struggling to see where National Assembly found the constitutional justification for what they have done. As part of Section 15(1) of the Constitution, INEC has power to organize and undertake and supervise elections. Also in Section 76(1), sub 111, sub 1, and Section 178, it is categorical. Election shall be held on a date to be appointed by INEC. And former president, chairman says, so if elections are to be on a date set by INEC, where did the National Assembly get its powers?
All right, Bayo, that was the issue we had in our discussion segment on Monday. And there were all kinds of opinions articulated by our 3 guests or so on that occasion. So it's a matter still open to debate.
Yes,
I'm sure that at some point If the need arises, they will go to court to sort it out. Now, as you indicated, when you were discussing the photograph on the front page of the blueprint, that photograph was straight out of the meeting of the Council of State that took place yesterday. There are stories on that. Above the nameplate of the New Telegraph, it says, Council of State okays $1 billion to boost agriculture. That's from New Telegraph. With the rider Jonathan, IBB, Shagari, and Shonekon absent at meeting. Now, the story out of the blueprint, the story out of the Council of State is also there on the front page of the Daily Independent newspaper. This time, right below the photograph on the front page, it says, Herdsmen Farmers Crisis. Federal government to gazette grazing routes nationwide and to pump $1 billion into diversification program. That story is on page A4 in greater detail. But there's a political story that it's also on the front pages of two of the papers. Let's take a look again, back again at the New Telegraph. New Telegraph, just below the nameplate. One of the four headlines there, that's the last one to the right. It says, give me time to think about 2019, Buhari tells APC governors. That's on page 4. And that story is right at the foot of the front page of the leadership. And it says, give me time to decide on 2019, President Buhari tells APC governors. Of course, there are other stories on the front pages.
That same story you have just as an earpiece to the Punch newspaper. Buhari asks APC governors to give him more time to decide. That's for 2019.
Well, talking about the APC, I think the challenge the party has is to first to reconcile the national leader of the party with the chairman of the party, because if the national leader is to pursue the causes of reconciliation, the first point of reconciliation should be with the national chairman. But meanwhile, the president's reaction is to the overtures made by the governors of the APC that he should run in 2019. You recall that elections, according to the presidency, that the presidency is concerned about governance. It is not addressing its mind to 2019 election as yet. But meanwhile, a very human interest story. A landlord in some way in Benin is reported to have set his property ablaze because he wanted to get the tenants out. They refused to pay rent. And the man says that the man said to have inherited the property from his parents. He said, I need money. Let the house burn. I don't get any money from it. In fact, he prevented people from trying to rescue the house. However, some 20 shops were burned in the premises, and one of the shop owners is lamenting because he said they are not owing, but the man wanted money from them. He kept on asking for money because he wants to bury his late father.
Okay, quickly now, Bayo, let's take a look at the editorial for today. We're looking at Blueprint, editorial, page 11. Unacceptable infant mortality rate. The ranking of Nigeria as the 11th country with the highest number of newborn deaths in the world ought to give the government so much concern at all levels on healthcare, a serious cause for concern. Now, the United Nations International Children Emergency Fund, as UNICEF now, released this statistics in Lagos on Tuesday.
Well, talking about statistics, you also heard that the Transparency International says that Nigeria's corruption has dropped from 136 that it was to 148. And they put their finger on what they describe as the fault of the judiciary and the prosecuting agency not succeeding in the corruption cases, not because the corruption individuals have not been identified, but they are not being successfully prosecuted. Talking about the statistics about maternal death, it is put about 29 deaths in every 1,000 beds. And that is one of the highest, even on the continent of Africa. Given our population and what is being done about maternal mother care at the hospitals, I think we should be able to bring that 29 is rather on the high side. So
that's right.
Yeah, 29 is at the global level. 31 is for the one indicating for Nigeria.
All right, Bayo, well, that's the much we can take. I mean, the lead story relates to mother and child and the hospital imprisonment of the nursing mother over inability to pay bills. That's for the New Telegraph, and that's the much that we can take. Bayo, we'd like to thank you. You know that it's a Friday, so you're excited signing off on this stage.
Yes.
Thank
you very much.
All right, it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you live on the network service of Africa's largest TV network, that's the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break. When we return, do not forget we have 2 items to discuss this morning. Better treatment for breast cancer and also the abduction in Dapchi.
Speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
I was distressed to notice that some of the comments, especially in the social media, have crossed our national red lines by daring to question our collective existence as a nation. This is a step too far.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
Do you say what you know for sure to be true?
Do you know that Abuja is planning to arrest all these girls wearing weave-on and human hair?
Why spread falsehood, half-truths and lies just to make yourself relevant and to feel important?
Did you read last week's paper?
No.
You read?
No, I'm not the leader police people.
That is the problem. My people suffer for lack of knowledge.
People are misled by your fabricated stories and lies.
You've killed me, so now my memorial service now go happen. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Unfortunately, these spinners of yarns and story people dwell among us and abuse us via our ears.
How does he get his information?
The cuckoo sends in the town where me and know they get her information.
Alas, tune into your rip-cracking comedy this week as we bring you the episode titled Story People.
Over and out.
Brought to you by Glow.
The largest data network, Glow Unlimited.
When I was a little girl, I loved spending time with Mum and Grandma cleaning the house. I knew what Grandma's secret was. I was so excited to sing in the choir. And your shirts are always so white. I knew what Mum's secret was. Today, I'm a modern woman that still trusts the secrets passed down to me.
It's Jik, of course, the trusted bleach which can be used all around your house for amazing results.
Shh, it's our little secret.
It's no secret. Jik removes 101 stains. Just Jik it.
What makes a Niger mom powerful?
I encourage my kids to learn new things. And if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's One Capful to fight germs.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capful to disinfect surfaces and clothes.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capful for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capful protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Be a powerful Niger mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
Use Dettol Skin Jelly, which protects against germs for a healthy, smooth skin every day.
They've already done us proud. Nobody will ever imagine that in any Winter Olympics, there'll be Nigerians there. And then for the very first time, I'm really proud of them. And I believe strongly that that's the beginning of new things that's happening into sports. And I believe strongly that in the next 2 weeks, we should be hearing something that we'll be all be proud of. They are our girls, and you know, I'm rooting for them.
Here we go, Stevie, let's go!
You are watching the Kwese Free Sports, UHF 32, for the Fan.
Thank you for staying tuned. The program is Good Morning Nigeria. If you just joined us, we are right in time for the first part of our discussion, taking a look at breast cancer and what you have as attendant issues alongside. Now, over the years, cancer treatment has become difficult in view of the colossal amounts needed to manage. It is viewed by many as a death sentence.
Well, you're right, Blessing. That's because treatment centers for cancer are pretty few in the country. And it is usually, in terms of cost, out of the reach of many patients. And some of them do not, as a result, present themselves even for diagnosis.
Well, however, nowadays efforts are being made to reduce such burden as experts are evolving over time with new trends to actually manage cancer, especially that of the breast, with a view to changing the narrative from being a death sentence or disease.
All right, we have two guests with us in the studios to discuss this further. First, at this time, we would like to welcome Dr. Bisi Ademuyiwa. Dr. Bisi Ademuyiwa is a breast medical oncologist, and she's also an associate professor in the Division of Oncology, Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. Dr. Ademuyiwa, pleasure to have you with us.
Pleasure to be here. Good morning.
All right. Also here with us is Dr. Chris Otabo, who is CEO Alliance Hospital right here in Abuja. Dr. Otabo, pleasure to have you with us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. All right. Bless you. Let's begin with Dr. Ademuyiwa. Again, we've on a number of occasions taken on medical issues on this program, one of such issues being cancer. But today we are focusing on breast cancer. What makes breast cancer unique, and what is it all about?
So what makes breast cancer unique is actually that, unfortunately, a lot of people in low to middle income countries present at a later stage when it's not able to be cured, particularly when it has spread outside of the breast. And the good thing is about breast cancer is that if you are screened or if the breast cancer is detected early, it's completely curable with proper treatments. When
you say that the breast cancer or the cancer cells would have spread to other parts of the body, that's part of what I would like you to explain, especially to our audience, who do not have deeper understanding of medical issues. How does breast cancer occur?
So breast cancer is a cancer that basically starts in the breast. In terms of cancers, we don't really know why cancers develop, but what we think is that there's an insult to genetic material in our bodies, and that insult could be acquired, such as a gene that is transferred from a parent, inherited, or the insult could be acquired, such as through lifestyle changes, obesity, alcohol, taking estrogens, or through aging. But what actually tips one to develop cancer is unknown. But breast cancer is when the cancer starts in the breast, and when you have a cancer that is left untreated, it eventually grows and then spreads to other parts of the body, and then that's when it kills.
I'm wondering, Blessing, I'd like Dr. Otabo to also chip in here. When you say the cancer cells have spread to other parts of the body, what is it, if you like, the traveling mechanism for the spread of the cancer cells to other parts of the body?
Okay, thank you very much. Cancer spread by many means. It can spread by local invasion. The word cancer is gotten from the word that suggests a crab-like structure. So it has tentacles. So there can be local spread, okay, which means it spreads to contiguous tissues. Then it could break. Part of these cancer cells could break and fall into the blood vessel, and then the blood vessel takes it around to far distant places. Then it could also spread through the lymphatics. There are different vessels in the body. The lymphatics, they are these vessels that mop up excess fluids from our bodies and recycle them. So some cancers also spread by lymphatics. So because of this, a cancer that occurred primarily in the breast can find itself in the liver. We say there has been a distant spread, a metastatic spread, and brain or any other part through some of these means that I have mentioned.
Why? Sorry, bless you. I mean, I just had to ask you, I'll give you some opportunity, to come in. Why is it that cancer patients often experience severe pain?
Well, cancer patients experience severe pain really depending on the site of the cancer. Particularly, for instance, if we take breast cancer as a case study, breast cancer usually is completely painless because there are a limited number of nerves in the breast. But when cancer spreads to areas that are high in innervation, such as the liver or the bones, then that's when it spreads and expands and spreads on and stretches the capsule or impinges on a nerve. That's when pain starts. But for instance, if there's a small cancer in the breast, it's usually painless. So it really depends on where it is.
All right, anyway, both of you now could still pick up this answer. While you were talking earlier, you said the thing that tips off cancer is still relatively unknown.
Correct.
But really, let's break it down. Who is at risk, really? Because if we're talking about breast now, the average mind is, okay, maybe it's just for the females. Of course, men might not have such extended protrusion from their chest like that. So who is at risk and at what stage?
So the simple answer is that everyone really is at risk. Breast cancer is extremely common. It happens in about 1 out of every 8 women. And for men, it's very rare, but still can happen. It's about 1 in 1,000 men will be affected with breast cancer. So what are the risk factors for breast cancer? The commonest risk factor for breast cancer, of course, is being female. And then age. The median age of breast cancer is about 62. So as a woman grows older, her risk increases. There are other risk factors such as starting your periods very early in life, less than 11, or going through the change of life, menopause, later on, over the age of 55. If a woman takes hormone replacement therapy to combat the symptoms of menopause, that's also a very strong risk factor for breast cancer. There are also some inherited genes that can be passed on from one's parents, such as the BRCA1 or 2 gene, that also increase the risk of breast cancer. There are things like if somebody has had radiation to the chest as a child for some different conditions, that could be a risk factor as well. Obesity is a risk factor. Alcohol is a risk factor as well. So there are several different risk factors for breast cancer.
Okay, I'm sure, because you back there in the United States, something must have prompted you coming into the country to actually take a look at what is happening. Let's find out, Dr. Tabo, really, how alarming is the incidence we have here in Nigeria over the issue of breast cancer?
Okay, thank you very much. I think I'll start from the earlier comment you made, and that's actually why we're here. Dr. BC is listed on Forbes magazine as the #1 breast cancer oncologist in the United States. And I came across that information December last year when I was on holiday in the US. And I decided that, and I also found out that she was visiting Nigeria for her mom's 70th birthday. So we decided to organize a program around her coming. And so yesterday we had a dinner with doctors that treat cancers. And it was beautiful. She did a presentation to the group. And today we're having a public lecture for all the women, for the public, women, for her to talk to them about breast cancer and preventive measures and things that they can do, simple things. Okay, and then later on today by 1 p.m. from 1, there's a free consultation for breast cancer patients at Alliance Hospital. So that's just the program that we organize around her, just to create that interface.
And tap into
yes, exactly. And then you never can tell. Cost is a factor for breast cancer treatment. And over there in the US, there are a lot of foundations, a lot of opportunities to get free access to, help. And you never can tell. She might just be that door that could be open to the poor, indigent cancer patients in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how alarming, like alongside the question?
In terms of statistics, we don't have very good statistics in Nigeria. But I can tell you that women are dying every day from breast cancer in this country. It is very alarming. Unfortunately, over 90% of the cases of breast cancer that present to us as doctors, they come in the late stage, even among educated people. Okay, so there's really not much you can do. It's only when it's gone so out of hand, stage 3, stage 4, that's when they come. And that's why some of the fallout from our conversation last night is very instructive. Clinical breast examination, self-breast examination, those are basic things that doesn't cost anything to do, and it can save thousands of lives. About 75,000 people die of cancers generally in this country every year.
Okay,
I'm wondering, just before, I don't know how much of Nigeria's medical history you have. The occurrence of breast cancer, is it a recent occurrence? Let me put it that way. or has breast cancer always been there? In other words, I mean, for our mothers and our grandmothers, did we always have or hear stories of women dying of breast cancer?
Well, you know, traditionally, cancers have sort of been a taboo and they've been hidden in people in our communities. So I think there's probably a little bit more awareness about cancers in general. So we're hearing more about it. The incidence of cancer in general in low to middle income countries is increasing as we take on the habits of the more developed world. We now bear majority of the share of the worldwide burden. So cancer incidence is increasing in Nigeria. But having said that, it was present in the past. It's not a new thing. But I believe that there's a little bit more awareness, and so we're actually hearing a little bit more about the statistics.
Dr. Otabo, what's your take on this? I mean,
yeah, you know, before now, many years ago, a woman could have breast cancer and die, and the diagnosis is not made because they attributed it to witchcraft, and so on and so forth. So with increasing knowledge, with increasing awareness, because you can't find what you are not looking for. You can't see it. It's only when you are looking for something that you can see it. So, and then coupled with the fact that we are westernizing in terms of our diet, so the incidence is increasing, but the awareness is also increasing. And this is good because it also helps us to pick the cancers early and treat them early. That's why you are hearing so much noise about breast cancer compared to like 30 years ago.
Okay, let's get back to Dr. Ademuyiwa. You've talked about the issue of diet, you've talked about the issue of lifestyle, and it's actually been at the forefront now. What basic things should people look out for, especially the females now, because you said at least it's more on the females than you have for men. What are those signs you should look out for before you start presenting yourself early?
So what we recommend in general is breast self-awareness. So every woman should really know how her breasts look and feel. And what we recommend is that you check your breast once a month. You choose about the same time every month, either the first of the month or the last day of the month. Look at your breast, just feel around so that you know how they feel, so that if there's a change, you can present to medical attention. And the changes you would be looking for, you would be looking for a lump in the breast or in the armpit that wasn't there before. You would be looking for skin changes, either redness, a rash, or dimpling of the skin, or nipple discharge, particularly if you're not breastfeeding, or there could be nipple crusting. These are some of the things that should really, you know, pick your attention and have you present to medical care. And so if you do that once a month, you would have a good understanding of what your body is like. And if there's a change, then you can, you know, let somebody know so that you can be further evaluated.
Okay, what about diet? We've talked about diet. What kind of diet has been pushing people to go on this lane?
So there's not really any specific diet that we recommend to prevent breast cancer, but we do recommend that you maintain a healthy weight, avoiding obesity, avoiding alcohol, being physically active, and maintaining a good weight throughout your life. Obesity, alcohol are strong risk factors for breast cancer. So, you know, everybody knows what to eat, less refined sugars, less carbohydrates, more fruits and vegetables in general are, you know, usually recommended for healthy living.
From the word go or from a particular age?
From the word go.
All right, Dr. Otabo, it is often said that every human being has a cancer cell or has cells that could become cancerous, but that some of the guys, cancer cells are actually benign, you know, while others become, of course, ravaging in their impact. How true is this?
Okay, well, not exactly so. But let me explain. We are all made of cells, and the cells divide every time. That's how we renew ourselves. Okay, something can go wrong with the division process, and then a line of cells can lose the normal control and then begins to divide beyond proportion. And that is when we say a tumor has arisen. Okay, the tumor can be benign or it could be malignant. If it is benign, it is friendly, it's body friendly. The only problem you have is probably the stretch of the tissue and the pressure effect. Okay, But if it is cancerous, that's the one that is mostly risky to the individual, because it continues to divide, it continues to spread, it continues to compete with the normal body tissue for nutrients. It produces chemicals that are injurious to itself. So the aim of cancer is actually to finally eliminate the individual. So I don't know if I've explained that. Normal cells lose their normal control mechanism for growth and division, and then they begin to grow out of proportion. And then it could be benign, which is not so terrible depending on the location. Then it could be cancerous. When it's cancerous, then the tendency to spread is there. And it's that spread that makes it more dangerous, because it goes to the liver, it knocks off the liver, you know, by producing chemicals, by competing with the liver for space, for nutrients, you know, and they grow faster than normal tissue. So the tendency is for them to take the nutrients from the normal tissues, and so on and so forth. Pressure effect, you know, they can block blood vessels, they can put pressure on vital structures. In the brain, if it's there in the brain is an enclosed space. And if the cancer cell keeps spreading, it puts pressure on the brain, it can lead to unconsciousness and also death. If it's in the intestine, it blocks the intestine, it causes intestinal obstruction, you know, so many things like that. Yeah.
Okay, let's explore further with Dr. Ademuyiwa. There are new trends, there are new intervention in the management. Well, I know over time, peers from here to exchange knowledge here and there. Let's find out what is new in the management of breast cancer today. What kind of therapy would sufferers around the world or around here can benefit from?
So there are three main modalities we use to treat breast cancer. So there's surgery, there's radiation therapy, and then systemic therapy. And all three modalities have advances. For instance, in surgery now, we've reduced the kind of surgery we're administering to women. So instead of the radical modified mastectomy, which was being done several decades ago, which takes off the whole breast and the muscles, which is very disfiguring, we're now doing lumpectomies, which is just removing the tumor. And so a woman is able to preserve her breast. That's one of the advances in surgical techniques. In terms of radiation, instead of radiating the whole breast and the whole chest wall and causing a lot of burning, the radiation now has become quite focused. And instead of the long usual duration of about 6.5 weeks of radiation, the radiation has now been shortened for women who are eligible. Some are getting radiation just over 3 weeks, and there are even clinical trials to determine if one fraction for just 1 day would also be sufficient for women. In terms of systemic therapy, there are new chemotherapies that we use, which are much less toxic than the chemotherapies we were using several decades ago. We have a lot of supportive care techniques to prevent side effects from chemotherapy, such as nausea, vomiting. We can control those very well. The duration of hormonal therapy has now been extended to 10 years rather than 5 years for women who are particularly at high risk of having disease recurrence. So all these modalities have increased the survival of patients with early stage breast cancers.
How affordable are these new forms of management?
Well, some of them are extremely expensive. And in general, in developed countries, there's mechanism of insurance, health insurance, which pays for individuals' healthcare needs. Some of them are cheap. For instance, there's a drug which is, many decades old. It's extremely powerful in preventing breast cancer recurrence. It's called tamoxifen. It's widely available all over the world, and it's extremely cheap. So newer techniques, yes, some of them are very expensive, but there's still older techniques that are extremely affordable for all women all over the world.
What story do we have here, Dr. Tabo, with regard to either the application of the older or newer techniques?
The cost is a problem for us in Nigeria and most of the developing world. Most of Nigerian women we pay out of pocket, and because the insurance system here is weak, we have less than 6% insurance coverage for Nigeria, and of that percent, only few people will have breast cancer covered under insurance. So even for those who have insurance, breast cancers are not covered. So at the end of the day, you have people paying from their pockets. And though it's far more costly in the US. On the average, in the US, you could spend in the neighborhood of $700 and something thousand to manage breast cancer. But here, it's not as expensive because the manufacturing companies, I don't know how they do it, but we get drugs cheaper here than over there. But that's not to say that it will not cost an arm and a leg to treat breast cancer here. And the funds are just not there. There are a lot of patients who require such treatments and they are still moving around with their breast cancer burden. So it's quite a problem. And it's a public health problem.
What are the clinical manifestations of breast cancer? I mean, if you say a woman has breast cancer, what does she begin to feel?
So it really depends on the stage she's at. So for instance, there are 4 stages of invasive breast cancer. Stage 1 is when there's a small lump, less than about 2 centimeters in the breast. She may feel that or she may not feel that. That may be something that is picked up on routine screening mammogram. Stage 2 is when it's a little bit bigger and perhaps has spread to the armpits, and in that situation she may feel something, a lump. And then stage 3, the cancer is bigger. So in general, there could be absolutely no symptoms, or a woman could feel a lump in the breast or the armpit. There could be swelling of the breast, there could be redness, the breast could look like an orange peel and sort of mimic an infection. If a woman has systemic symptoms such as chest pain, cough, shortness of breath, a new bone pain, pain in the right upper quadrant, which may suggest that there's involvement of the liver, or headaches, dizziness, nausea, vomiting, these systemic symptoms may indicate that there has been distant spread and metastatic disease. So it really depends on the stage of presentation.
If you take that again, for the benefit of our viewers, you talked about vomiting, you talked about chest pain, and pain in the torso area. Just explain that for the benefit of our viewers. If you're a woman, what should you look out for?
So first of all, you should be examining your breasts, looking to see if there's a breast lump, or if there are any skin or nipple changes on the breast that were not there before. If there's anything new in the armpits, particularly a lump, or if there's a new nodule, a little bump on the breast, on the skin, or anything like that. And then, of course, you should always be aware of, what your health is. For instance, if breast cancer spreads, there are some organs that it likes to spread to, the lungs. So in that situation, one would be worried about a persistent cough, chest pain, shortness of breath, not the usual cold that we always have, every now and then, but a breast cancer symptom that is not treated is usually persistent and progressive. If it goes to the bone, there would be a new, unusual pain in an area of the bone, not the usual arthritis that we always have, but something that is worsening. If it goes to the brain, there could be nausea, vomiting, there could be a headache that wakes you up early in the morning, there could be sort of loss of balance or weakness in an extremity or one side of the body, symptoms of a stroke. If they're spread to the liver, which breast cancer also likes to go to, there could be pain in the right upper quadrant of the abdomen, which wasn't there before, nausea, vomiting, unintentional weight loss. These are some of the signs of, distant spread of breast cancer.
Dr. Otabo, I'm sure you must have seen this in some cities, particularly big cities like Lagos. You find, some women, who are begging on the street, bare-breasted, and you find, sores all over the breast, even though a few fake ones have been picked up. They use tomato paste or so on their breast. But are these the kind of signs that also would show that perhaps this is a breast cancer patient?
Yeah, when you have a fungating mass with ulcer, that's a stage 4 cancer. That's like the terminal. Within a month, within a year, that person may be gone if nothing is done. That's an example, but it's not only breast cancer that can do that. There are some infections that can do that too. Tuberculosis can present like that. But if a woman by the time a woman who has breast cancer now has ulceration or discharging
sores,
yes, then you know that that's already a stage 4 disease.
But even going around like that in the streets, on the road, they're not risky.
That's
even
not,
to other
she's at risk to herself, and it's not good for the society. But there's something else I want to mention. A lot of Nigerian women, when they notice something strange in their breast or a mass, they go for alternative treatment, and they read a lot of all this stuff on the internet, and it's not doing them any good. They go for hydro treatment, heat treatment, herbal treatments, and all that. At the end of the day, they lose the best time to actually arrest the problem. By the time those things fail and they are coming back, it's already an advanced disease.
I'm wondering, now that you are right on that, I actually was going to raise this, alternative treatment, or if you like, alternative medicine. Two of the most popular that have been circulating, Blessed, I'm sure you must have also received that on social media. One is some doctor is being referred to, I don't know whether in India or somewhere in the US, says, look, cancer and cancer treatment, you have some conspiracy involving the pharmaceutical companies and all of that, that what you should do is avoid sugar. That cancer cells feed on sugar. So eliminate sugar from your diet, and then you kill off the cancer cells. That's one. Let's get your comment on that.
Well, you know, refined sugar is really not good for anything. And all cells in the body, cancerous cells and normal cells, feed on sugar, feed on glucose. Eliminating glucose is not helpful in treating any cancer at all. That's a complete old wives' tale. You know, cancer that is there's no clinical studies that have shown that arresting or eliminating sugar completely will lead to a reduction in the incidence or improvements in clinical outcomes from breast or any other cancer. So that's completely false. But of course, sugar really is not good for anything.
What about the talk about the alternative
medicine? I would like Dr. Tabo to also speak on the sugar stuff. I don't know whether you have received it in social media. It says cut off sugar, you know, kill the sugar business.
To start with, we cannot cut off sugar because well, there are different types of sugar, refined sugar, but really we exist on sugar because most things that we eat will end up as sugar because we need it. The body needs it for energy. It's the glucose that is broken down into ATP that we survive on. We cannot. But excess sugar is not good. Okay? But the issue of eliminating sugar and you wipe out cancer, that's a false. There's no study that have shown that, and there is no practical results that have proven that this is true.
The other one, I don't know whether this one is a grandmother's tale, you said old wives' tale, Dr. Ademoyiwa, is, in addition to cutting off sugar, which we have already addressed, is get a light lemon and hot water, you know, juice it, drink it for about a month or so. I don't know what the size of the cup is, probably like what we use for Good Morning Nigeria here. Drink it repeatedly, and it is farewell to cancer. Yeah. Your thoughts?
I think this is a grandfather's tale. In that situation, people are trying to do what we call alkalinize the microenvironment of the body. And again, that really hasn't been proven in any clinical trials or any studies to improve patients' outcome from cancers. So that's false.
No, but is it that lemon has no use for the body? I mean, let's face it, you talked about taking fruits a moment ago, and lemon is one of the commonly available fruits for us here in the tropics.
Well, it's good for health. It's good for health. All fruits are good for health. But in terms of specifically eliminating cancers, I don't have any data to back that up.
Well, we're still on the question for most who want to go the alternative medicine way. What do you advise?
What we advise is that there's really a window in terms of when one can be cured with any cancer that is curable, and that's when it's at the early stage. Essentially, cancer that is left untreated will grow, will spread, and ultimately will kill. So if you have a window of opportunity and you seek non-traditional you know, medications or therapies, and you lose that window, it may be too late. I mean, cancer can still be managed at stage 4, but it cannot be cured. So I would advise people to seek proper medical treatment if they have a cancer. And, you know, I advise my patients, if they insist on doing non-traditional therapies, I say do the traditional therapy first. Once you're cured, you can always go back to the non-traditional therapies, you know, if you must.
All right. You know, thank you very much. We will like to get reactions now from our viewers. We already have them actually by way of tweets that have come in. We will take those tweets presently. But let me just ask Dr. Otabo before we go into the tweets, because the tweets are quite many. Tell us the difference, if any, between cure for cancer and then treatment of cancer. And then why is it that in some cases when a patient has been treated or said to have been cured, there is said to be some relapse, and then, you know, the cells begin to get malignant all over?
Okay, thank you. In terms of cancer treatment, we talk in terms of the number of years of survival. We talk in terms of 5 years survival, 10 years survival. After that, we can say that the patient has been cured. You know, many of our patients in this part of the world, they don't do 1 year after diagnosis, because by the time they are coming, in fact, it's the symptoms of metastasis that bring them. And at that point, it's difficult to do 1 year. But those who have been found, who were caught early, and the right treatment modality is given, which is remove the cancer burden, treat any possible local spread, then you wait for them for 5 years, and then look also 10 years. After 10 years, if nothing happens, you can say that that patient has attained cure.
Dr. Ademoyewa, your take also on cure and treatment and relapse?
So first of all, in terms of relapse, I'll tackle the last question first. Unfortunately, any patient who has developed a cancer is always at risk of having a relapse, which is also what we call a recurrence. But proper treatments can lead to a cure, which will, and if a cure is achieved, then obviously there will be no relapse. And the proper treatment for cancers are a combination of, depending on the cancer, would be a combination of surgery, perhaps radiation if indicated, and systemic therapies with chemotherapy or some special medications, depending on the kind of cancer. So those treatments can lead to a cure and prevent a relapse. But every patient with a cancer is at risk for a relapse. And again, it depends on the stage of presentation. For instance, patients who have very early stage breast cancer, stage 1 breast cancer, have a cure rate of about 98%, meaning that about only 2 out of 100 of them would relapse over 5 years, which is essentially most of them are cured. Whereas if patients present with more advanced disease, perhaps stage 3, only about 65% of them are cured, meaning that 35 of them, unfortunately, will have a relapse even after full treatment.
No, well, let's still pursue something I know what most mothers will want to talk about, but that will be after we're done with the tweets that our viewers have sent in. Is the issue of people saying if you breastfeed your children long enough, you might not fall under that risk. We'll find out from you more after. Okay, from Thomas Bagmu says the government should make breast cancer tests free in order to aid early detection, and cure campaign should be taken to rural areas.
Dele Jack Solomon. So the problem of breast cancer in Africa, and Nigeria in particular, is compounded by the lack of standardized diagnostic and treatment programs, and that many women delay seeking treatment for symptoms, with a large proportion of the diagnosed cancer being those that are not amenable to treatment.
Hassan Labaran says once it has been acknowledged that it is a deadly disease, government should try as much as possible to get drugs that can stop its growth.
Among Balahun Bab's tweet, it appears to the average Nigerian that we are only paying lip service to this deadly disease. Look at the cancer center along the airport road in Abuja, launched by Mrs. Ture Yaradua. Our government needs to do more in the area of advocacy, sensitization of the public, as well as providing access to treatment of cancer by the vulnerable in the society. They are often largely at the receiving end.
Sunny Michael Makomaji said, Dr. Bisi, why is it that breast cancer is more common in Africa compared to Europe and the rest of the world? Is it traceable to the kind of food our women eat, or is it a hereditary kind of sickness? And again, how can it be detected at the early stage? Well, we've taken time to answer some.
Festus Akimboyewa tweets, there should be a screening program in Nigeria where all women age 50 plus will be screened every 3 years. Early detection and diagnosis can reduce the number of breast cancer deaths.
Chris Simeon says, breast cancer occurs as a result of poor hygienic condition. Women are still putting money on their breast cover, as it's covered with the brassiere. It's very bad, and it causes breast cancer. Health personnel should enlighten them.
Habila, sorry, Dr. Ademoye, I'm sure you understand what he's talking about. When you just go to the market, you just bring this thing. So is that a likely cause of breast cancer?
No, there's no evidence that causes breast cancer.
Okay, so there's no evidence. That's to Chris Simeon. There's no evidence. Of course, it's unhygienic, and I'm sure that these days they have many more wallets in their possession. Habila Kwara Zakshi. Breast cancer is truly a deadly disease. Please, I want to know whether there is a total cure for breast cancer. If there is, how affordable is it to the average Nigerian? The two doctors here have already spoken to that issue. Yes.
Many, Festus Akimboyewa tweets, many women don't have enough knowledge about cancer. Government and NGOs should intensify breast cancer campaigns across Nigeria.
Lawal Olaya Abiodun tweets, breast cancer has killed many because of the high cost of treatment. Government should do something to bring down the costs of treatment.
Chris Simeon again tweets, the best management of breast cancer, according to experts, is by...
Yes, this is...
In fact, we are supposed to have read this.
Well, I should take it. I should take it. That Chris Simeon is saying that is tweeting here that the best management of breast cancer, according to the experts, is by sucking. And again, this also has been circulated in the social media recently that when we probably have young viewers at this time of day, but let's take it a bit more seriously, that to the extent that the breast is fondled more regularly, a woman undertakes breastfeeding for her babies, and then of course in amorous situations, that this could tend to deal with the lumps before they grow. What is your thought on this?
Well, there's no evidence that, fondling during amorous situations can decrease the incidence of breast cancer. But he is correct about breastfeeding. Breastfeeding is actually protective against a certain form of breast cancer. So there's a certain form of breast cancer that's called triple negative breast cancer that's extremely aggressive and deadly, and unfortunately preferentially affects younger black women. And what studies have shown is that breastfeeding can actually decrease the incidence of that aggressive triple negative breast cancer, as well as reducing obesity. So that is correct.
Okay. All right, Dr. Otabo, what do you find in your clinic, with regard to any linkage between breastfeeding or regular fondling and lower incidence of cancer, breast cancer?
Well, it's not a clinic affair. It's just an assumption. What Dr. Bisi has said is what is documented as correct, which is that statistics have shown that women who breastfeed their children have reduced risk of developing breast cancer. But the adult type of, because in the process of breastfeeding, there are hormonal interplays that reduces the effect of estrogen on the breast. So, but the adult one that's not baby sucking, I don't know about that.
All right. Well, Dr. Otabo, earlier you were talking about the crowded program for Dr. Ademoye. You talked also about the plant consultation that you'll be holding now. Who can have access to the plant consultation? Give us some information, especially for the benefit of the members of the public.
Okay. From here, we're going to Agora Hotel to have a public lecture, and the public is invited. Women will have the opportunity to ask questions as they wish. After that lecture, she will proceed to Alliance Hospital, where a free consultation has been slotted for women who have breast cancers, those who think they have breast cancer or who have. And she's going to be there with 2 other medical oncologists for the consultation. It's free, but there's a maximum number of 40 people that she can see today. So if people have concerns about their breast cancer condition, they are free to come. But once we hit the 40 mark, there are a few people who are already aware because we spread the news on the social media. There are a few people who have indicated interest.
So slot is even less than 40 now?
Yeah, it's less than 40, but she will take a maximum of 40 people because she'll be out of town maybe from tomorrow or next.
All right. It's on that note, of course, we would like to appreciate our 2 guests who have been with us this morning. Dr. Bisi Ademoyewa, we would like to, before we sign you off, let's get to your take on the free consultation you'll be having today. What is it that potential visitors should expect?
So, I would, ask them about their history, about what, they think is going on, potentially do a breast examination and sort of advise them on, how they can access medical care, what kinds of treatments would be best for them, depending on their presentation and how far they have gone in the diagnostic process. And for those women who don't have breast cancer, I can teach them some tricks of how to lower their risk of developing breast cancer and, how to check their bodies and kind of be aware of things.
All right, Dr. Bisi Ademoyewa, breast medical oncologist and associate professor at the Division of Oncology, Washington University in St. Louis, Missouri. We'd like to thank you for being on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Please, can I just mention the
Dr.
address of the hospital? The hospital is 5 Malum Fashi Close off Emeka Yanku Street. It's important because they need to be able to find their way there. Okay. And for some patients who have already seen the doctor and they are vacillating, not knowing exactly what decision to take, Dr. Bisi will be of help to them.
All right, Dr. Chris Otabo, CEO of Alliance Hospital, right here in Area 11, Garki, Abuja. I would like to thank you for your contribution to our discussion this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so it's still Good Morning Nigeria, reaching you on Africa's largest television network. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we're taking a look at the latest abduction in Dapchi, Yobe State.
Your perfect family is under threat by germs. Infectious diseases are now the world's biggest killer of adults and children. Every day, 16,000 children under the ages of 5 and thousands of adults die from infectious diseases. These infectious diseases are caused by germs. They are everywhere. An average human being comes in contact with over 1 million germs daily. In unclean water, dirty surfaces, in the toilet, on cuts and wounds, on your clothes. Germs can cause deadly diseases like typhoid, diarrhea, flu, and cough. To protect your family from germs, use the power of Dettol's 1 Cap Full for surface cleaning in your bathing water, in your laundry water, for first aid, to protect your family from up to 100 illness-causing germs. Be Dettol sure. Endorsed by the Nigerian Medical Association.
NTA Television College, Jos, an affiliate of Ahmadu Bello University Zaria, is organizing a 2-week course in broadcast media management techniques. The course will be facilitated by iconic media managers and administrators such as Dr. Tony O. Iradia, former DG, NTA. Date, 5th to 16th March 2018. Course fee, 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Also, a 4-week course in principles and practice of marketing. We hold from 19th March to 13th April 2018. Cost fee 100,000 naira per participant. Accommodation inclusive. Venue for both courses will be the NTA Television College, Rayfield, Jos. Both courses are specially designed to hone the skills of participants in the dynamic broadcast media space. The broadcast media management technique course targets participants from grade level 10 to 15 and shall deal with critical management functions that affect job performance. Principles and practice of marketing course has been packaged to help participants acquire relevant knowledge and skills in all aspects of digital marketing, public relations, market research, strategies, and management. For further inquiries, contact 0806 908 9807, 0703 660 7155, or email ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you can be.
Can I see your particulars, sir?
Officer, my particulars no dey here.
In that case, you'll have to come with me to the police station.
Officer, which levels? Where I for find you something make you take arrange your weekend.
What? Offense number 1, driving without particulars. Offense number 2, trying to bribe an officer of the law.
I won't harass Nigerians or take bribe. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Now, the second outlook to our conversation on Good Morning Nigeria today is on the Yobe school attack, 4 days after. Following the report of abduction of government girls' science technical college Dapchi in Yobe State Monday night, the Federal Executive Council mandated 3 cabinet members to proceed to the scene of the crime on a fact-finding mission. And the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, led the delegation to the college. Now, Hussaini Mohammed is our report.
The federal delegation led by the Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, were in Yobe State to fulfill the presidential mandate of visiting the scene of the recent attack by the suspected Boko Haram in order to establish the authenticity of the abduction of school girls. According to Lai Mohammed, the attack on the school is another desperate move by the Boko Haram militants.
Their power has gone down completely. They have been pushed out of Sambisa. And they now, what you see, oxygen. Their oxygen is publicity. This is what they are looking for. Something that would grab world attention. But I can tell you that with determination of our gallant officers and men, the days of Boko Haram is almost until students show up or we hear from their parents that they are with them. We cannot say this is the number of students that are left. Give us a few more days, please.
The Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed, who said the federal government in collaboration with security agencies will do everything humanly possible to bring the girls into the hands of their parents. However, appeal for calm, saying it is a temporary setback.
All right, that report there by our correspondent setting the stage for our discussion. We have 2 guests to take a look at this issue. First, we'd like to welcome, of course, by the way, 2 of them are familiar faces on Good Morning Nigeria. First, we'd like to welcome Mike Ejiofor, who is a former Director of State Security Services. Mr. Mike, Chief Mike, Barrister Mike, pleasure to have you on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you.
All right. Also here with us is Kabiru Adamu, a security risk management expert. As I indicated earlier, a regular face on Good Morning Nigeria, one of our regular analysts. Kabiru Adamu, pleasure to have you, even though we are discussing an unpleasant topic this morning.
Pleasure is mine.
All right. So let's begin with Mr. Ejiofor. What's your comment on the latest incident? Just happened 4 days ago with the Yobe school attack by obviously Boko Haram terrorists.
Well, it's a very sad development, very ugly indeed. And if you look at the timing, there seems to now be a trend. You recall that in 2014, just barely about this time, there was this incident of kidnapping Chibok. So what does it tell us? There's a message that these people are out to destabilize this country. But my worry is the situation, the way top government officials are handling this matter. We started with the fact that they have been technically defeated. Then next it was completely degraded, completely finished with. We have taken over Sambisa Forest. We don't play politics with our security. So I'm worried. A lot of countries have been fighting insurgency, terrorism for over 20 years. Our own is no exception. So I don't see why people should just come out and be living in denial, not accepting the realities on ground. Our military are trying within their capacity and capabilities. But again, we should encourage them by not saying things, because the moment you come out to say, we are going to, you disclose all your strategies, your plan, and when you do that,
you provoke these people to attacking. So that's my worry. And it's a very sad development, knowing full well that we're also going to elections.
All right. Thank you very much, Barrister Michael Jaffor. Let's bring Mr. Kabiru. What is your reading of this recent attack? Just like I said, it's some days to Chibok 4 years ago.
One word, it's unfortunate that this is happening 4 years after Chibok. What lessons have we learned from the Chibok unfortunate experience? If going by the happenings in the last few days, unfortunately, not much. The same absence of a clear-cut strategy to handle an emergency or a crisis situation that we witnessed in 2014 is repeating itself. Conflicting information from government officials at federal, state, as well as the security arms. The parents of these children are left, quote unquote, unattended. No management of the trauma they are going through, no record of the number of girls that have been taken, quote unquote, no confidence between the people, the generality of Nigerians, and government officials, unfortunately. So not much has been learned. I am worried that in spite of the pronouncements by the government immediately after the Chibok incident, I'll just give us a bit of background. Immediately after the World Economic Forum, the Safe School Initiative was launched. And it was a fund that gathered money from different countries, from various international organizations, including the UN, the African Development Bank, and several other organizations. The German government, I know, donated a lot of money. Recently, that initiative was subsumed by the Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative. So the question is, one of the core mandates of that fund, the Safe School Initiative, is to improve the security of schools in the Northeast. It also had a mandate of moving pupils from vulnerable schools to safer schools. So the question is, between 2014 and 2018, what happened? What did that initiative do? Frankly, I'm in the field. I haven't seen any visible evidence.
I was going to ask that. You move around frequently around some of these areas. Could these incidents have been averted? Based on what's on ground?
If we had taken steps, sometimes, you know, as security professionals, we would like to borrow the experiences of other countries. Israel in 1984 had a similar experience. Terrorists entered a school and killed students. And honestly, after that, they took some proactive measures that till date, that kind of incident has not repeated itself. And everything mentioned in the mandate of the Safe School Initiative, if it had been implemented, I'm almost certain we wouldn't have had this experience. As an example, the Dapchi is the capital of Busari local government. We're not talking of a village. We're talking of the capital of a city that was entered, penetrated within 30 minutes. The whole incident, quote unquote, started and ended within 30 minutes. And it tells us a lot. If there were delay and deter measures that were in place in those schools, that wouldn't have happened.
Could we have let down our guards so soon? Because if they were so daring and so bold to enter, like you said now, I've never been to Dapchi, it's a city or is a town that is well known. Did we let our guards down so soon when we were still having this degradation here and there?
Well, like you said, we have not learned any lesson. And we need to re-strategize. We also need to change our tactics, make strategic thinking towards fighting this. Because anybody coming out to tell you now that Boko Haram has been defeated is not being honest. You have taken over Sambisa Forest. You're not being honest. You are playing politics with it. Because the fact remains that these people have operational bases where they operate from. So they don't operate from the thin air. We must accept the reality, and that's the only way we can win this war.
I'm wondering, let's say, Jafar, the parallel of Chibok and Dapchi, it's something that Kabiru Adamu has been referring to. You served on the Presidential Fact-Finding Committee on the Chibok abduction. What is it that we have failed to learn from the Chibok experience that probably has now given rise to what we have seen at Dapchi?
Yeah, you recall that during that sitting, there were a lot of gaps that were not filled during this presidential fact-finding. And I expected that, like he said, that some of these measures on safe schools would have been put in place to ensure that these students are safe. The only offense these children have committed is that they went to school. And it's a sad story because the primary responsibility of government is protection of life and property, the welfare of the people. A situation we are yet to come out from Chibok 4 years after. And we are having this one now with conflicting reports. Nobody has been able to say this is the exact number. I want to rely on the state government because it's only the governor that was elected by the people. Now, according to him, he was misled by admitting that some of the girls have been released, only to recant that these girls have not been released. What is the exact number now of the girls? Nobody can tell you accurately. The parents are willing, they're going through anguish. How long shall we continue like this? It's really sad, and I think we need to, like I said earlier, change our tactics, play down politics on this issue. We don't play politics with our security. Our security agencies are doing their best, but I think they are under pressure to certify the political masters by assuring that we should also be able to ask, what is the status of our capacity in terms of equipment? These are not things you buy off the shelf, coupled with recession. So they are not properly equipped to fight this terror. And these people, the terrorists on their part, are very well organized. They have sophisticated arms. And you begin to wonder, each time there's a release of these Boko Haram insurgents, there's bound to be an increase in attack.
Yeah, when you say release, because there's been an ongoing trial, I think that they have adjourned now, that was taking place at New Busa, where you had the expedited trial of some of the Boko Haram defendants. In the course of the trial, hundreds of them, of course, were released. If there is no, if the charge against you has not been proven, why continue to keep
No. I'm not talking about, you see, some of them have been tried convicted. But there have been 2 releases, if I recall, that the people have been de-radicalized. They have been turned around. You never can tell the extent, because the possibility of these people going back is not there. And again, in negotiations like this, I'm not saying on point of authority because I don't have the facts. Money exchange hands, and these people use it to re-equip and continue the attack. So it's a very delicate problem that government has to weigh the options before going into any agreement with them.
All right.
You're nodding. What's your contribution to this line of argument?
I would like to build on what the Minister of Information mentioned. When he mentioned that this type of one-off attacks are their oxygen. From a security risk management perspective, I would like to add to that point, which is building on what my co-panelist has mentioned. It's clear from where I stand that the 2 groups, let's remember that we're dealing with 2 groups, the one called Boko Haram, Jamaat al-Ahli al-Dawat wal Jihad, and the Islamic State in West Africa province. They have been decimated. Their strongholds in the Sambisa forest have been taken over. Now, what happens when you throw a stone into a beehive? They disperse. So we did an assessment and asked ourselves, when they disperse, where are the likely places they will go to? And immediately Yobe came to our mind. Adamawa State, especially the northern part of Adamawa, then the fringes of the Lake Chad region. They are dispersed. They are running to places where they can hide. Now, in Yobe State, there were 5 local governments that were, quote and unquote, inaccessible because of the presence of the members of these groups in those locations. And our thoughts were that we would see a resumption of hostilities in those locations, and there will be one-off attacks. So Dapchi, it's honestly not a surprise. For me, the only surprise is the fact that the state government, and to an extent the military authorities, Operation Lafia Dole, did not anticipate this type of activities. Now, the question to ask ourselves is why would the groups engage in this type of activities? It's clear, funding, which ties in with what my co-panelists kidnap, ask for ransom. It could be political or it could be financial. The second component of that is what the minister mentioned, resilience. Demonstrate to their members that are feeling the pressure of the attacks that no, we're still active. That builds the membership base of the group. So it's clear that is what this group is trying to demonstrate. How many operatives of this terrorist group carried out the attack in Dapchi? We're told they came in two Hiluxes. Some said 4 Hiluxes. So let's even assume it's 4. How many people would enter a Hilux? We're talking about 8 probably. So multiply that by 2 or 4. So we're not talking of a huge number of persons. And the timing of the attack, it happened just before, at 7 thereabout, when it was getting dark. It was well thought out. The moment they carried out the attack, they hid under the dark and started running. The likelihood is they ran through Gaidam. Why am I saying that? We know that a military operation occurred that night in Gaidam. The next day there was a closure of part of the road leading to Gaidam. We are told that it was an attempt to rescue some of the girls, and unfortunately it appeared it didn't go well. So the military definitely is aware of some of the development. It's trying to rescue, quote unquote, the captured girls. But the question is, where could they have gone to? It ties to my earlier statement. We know, quote unquote, there are strongholds around those locations. The other component that which ties in with what Mr. Ejiofor has mentioned, what kind of equipment do our military have in terms of their ability to pursue these people at night and with the speed that is required to pursue them? Remember that they know the terrain. They are able to, they have established routes actually. That's for me the most amazing discovery. There are established routes that are used by these groups that are known to both the military and to people living in
but what greater risk?
I'm wondering, only a couple of weeks ago, some of the lecturers who were on some survey trip from University of Maiduguri were released by the terrorists, even though the police authorities later disclaimed part of the story that some of the women were released were also police women who were earlier abducted. So how do we reconcile this? On the one hand, you release, perhaps negotiation, you release, earlier captured persons, and then you now come back again to, a girls' secondary school or a girls' technical science school, to stage a terror attack and with the intention of kidnapping some persons. How do we reconcile this in terms of the modus operandi of these terrorists?
Yeah, that tallies with what I said before. That government, life is very precious and valuable. Nobody must toy with life. But we must be more strategic in thinking in terms of releases and negotiations. Because it does appear to that some functionaries in government, it has been in the public domain, people are making money out of this. So I think the government should take decisive action. We're either fighting this war or we are leaving it. That's my position, because you cannot continue to release people in captivity and going ahead to kidnap other people. That, at times, I begin to wonder, too, when people say Sambisa forest has been taken over. And he tried to make an analysis of scattering, going to other areas. Before you take over Sambisa, there must also be plans to see how do we contain the dispersal and the aftermath of this. So that's why I say it must be strategic. And it's a very sad commentary.
Right.
Very sad indeed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Makichofor. Still to both of you now, aspect of intelligence gathering, communication. Earlier on, Kingsley, where we're having the newspaper review, we talked about the kind of communication getting information across to people. Now, it's already noted that these groups, or whichever of the group now, has a penchant for adoption of schools, pupils, and all of those areas. Now, how do we begin to manage this information? Because if there were adequate means to communicate, maybe one person from the school or some person from the school could have reached out to the nearest formation or wherever the security personnel. What do we know about the aspect of communication from those areas that are supposed to be maybe where the splinter groups now are hidden?
Okay, my understanding is that in Yobe State, communication is much more better than in some parts of Borno State. I'll give you the example of Gambaru, Ngala, where people use you know, the lines from Cameroon and from, you know, to communicate with the other part of Borno State. Okay. So communication is pretty difficult in some of these remote locations. In Yobe, it's much more better than in Borno. However, my understanding is there is a governance issue. By that, I mean the trust between the people and those governing them. And it showed itself yesterday, unfortunately, when the governor went there and made a statement, and there was a reaction from the parents of the girls. We need to address that issue. People need to have confidence in the institutions of government. It's only then that they would supply the required information. It's a very vast area of discussion, but suffice to say that that trust that will allow people to make available the information is missing.
It's missing.
The second part of your question, which I would like to address, is the issue of the correlation between, you know, the groups releasing one person and then going about to abduct. Right. Some countries, including the United States of America, have taken a decision on that. You don't negotiate with terrorists, unfortunately, at least in the open. I have to emphasize that point. Here, there are backdoor channels that between ourselves we know exist, but you don't come out in the open to tell the world that you are negotiating with terrorists. What it does, I know the Bring Back Our Girls campaign will not be happy with this statement that I would say, but they need to understand the more you negotiate, the more abductions will happen. So I would call on the National Assembly with all sense of sincerity and purposefulness that they should initiate this discussion with Nigerians. Let us take a decision on negotiating with terrorists. My professional advice is that we should not negotiate with terrorists, at least in the open.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Just to take the tweets from our viewers at this time, Village Jack Solomon has this. Village Jack Solomon says, we are dealing with another Chibok scenario. The terrorists need money for arms, ammunition, vehicles, and others to keep their army of fighters moving across the border. The military must ensure that all the missing girls are found while the community helps them with adequate information.
From Mike Ayako is this tweet. He said, Damaturu Saga was very unfortunate and once again portrayed the country in a, I think that's Dapchina, portrayed the country in a bad shape. I feel the pain of Mr. President and all Nigerians on this ugly incident. The presidential delegation is a welcome development for first-class information. We must not play politics with it.
Abdul Musa tweets, what happened in Yobe State is a disgrace. How can we treat the issue of providing adequate security to our schools with levity? It seems we are yet to learn any lesson from the Chibok case. Someone must explain this latest security lapse. Or are there some people benefiting from all these security issues? The issue of Boko Haram must end now.
Now, Thomas Mbagun says, we hear that Boko Haram is defeated and the leader killed, but they keep causing harm. The leader keeps resurrecting. We are fed up.
Sunday Michael Amakoji tweets, says, thank God the federal government is proactive with the visit to Dapchi, but it is high time we faced reality. These Boko Haram elements are not technically or totally degraded. They are still with us, as Barrister Ejiofor said, and we must be on our toes to fight them. All right, those are the tweets that we have and about the much that we have time for. But gentlemen, very briefly, because we have to take our other segments now. A couple of weeks ago, the National Security Advisor launched some manual on dealing with counter-terrorism issues pertaining, of course, to winning hearts and minds. This probably has taken quite a while, you know, in the crucible. But when incidents of this nature occur, what does that tell us about the manual for counter-terrorism and others?
Yeah, the manual is called the Prevention and Countering Violent Extremism Action Plan, something like that. The idea is to have ministries and departments of government establish their own components of countering violent extremism. It's not going to address this issue, unfortunately. What will address this issue is for the presidency to work with the state governments to come up with a checklist that schools can use to determine whether their security is intact or not. And we're available, I'm sure Mike too is available to assist in the development of that checklist. It's not a rocket science. All countries have done that. The Presidential Committee on the Northeast Initiative has that mandate. It has the money. Why it's not doing that, unfortunately, I cannot.
All right, Kabir Adamo, security risk management expert and one of our regular analysts on security issues on Good Morning Nigeria. Thanks a lot for being with us today.
Thank you for having
We
me.
also would like to thank one of our other regular analysts, who is the former Director of State Security Services, Mike Ejiofor. Mike, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
All right, so that does it for our two topics on Good Morning Nigeria today. Let's go over now to our sports desk.
Nigeria's senior men's basketball team, the D Tigers, opened their 2019 World Cup qualifiers today in Bamako, Mali, with a